Right. So I've been putting up posts on Instagram, and every now and then I find cheeky guys who leave me a message just saying sex. So I decided that I was gonna talk about sex, baby. Talk about you and me. Yeah, this episode is about sex. I'm just getting ready to speak to Dr. Tanaya Narendra. She's an embryologist, and you may know her as Dr. Cuterus on Instagram. And we're going to be doing exactly what you heard me try to sing a few seconds ago. We're going to talk about sex, baby. And this is a conversation that I think a lot of us need to hear. So this is really interesting, right? I'm sure you get this a lot as well. The strangest comments on your Instagram posts. And I've done a lot of Instagram live pieces. And sometimes, or not sometimes, quite often, boys, because they think it's entertaining, will just be like, sex. It's just the word sex, right? And I'm just like, what? I mean, sure, fine, you caught my attention, but and then we like talk about sex. Then again, someone will say sex. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna do an episode about sex then. Like, if that's what you guys really want to know about, let's actually talk about it. But listen, thank you for being here and being on the show. And I came across your content on Instagram, and I remember like doing a double take and being like, wow, is she really talking about this stuff? Because no one else is. And that kind of leads me into the first thing that I wanted to ask you. So, I know that you, in your second medical internship at Abhilasha Hospital and IVF Center, which is where you currently practice, I know that you manage their social media. So what made you want to start it? And what did you learn about medical content creation from there? And also, the last part of that question will be, how has this influenced then Dr. Cuterus? And how did you come up with the name? So I'll ask you the questions all over again. But tell me about, like, why did you want to start the social media content first?
So firstly, thank you so much for having me here. It's very fun to be chatting about sex, the wonderful word the word that these intelligent Instagram boys with their two brain cells can come up with. Um, but I think let's start with the entertaining part. I came up with the name after way too many beers at a pub, and I was like, the uterus is a really cute place. It's our first home. Doesn't get enough credit. It's all is like brain, heart. These are the only places that get credit, and the uterus is the very first home we have. It's really cute. If you come from the background I come from, where I see uteruses all day, and yeah, it just fit. So that's how Dr. Cuterus happened. I was originally called something else, but that's too long a name, so I had to switch. And my parents run a fertility center in Allahabad, where I'm based, and that's Abhilasha Hospital and IVF Center, where I have been working for the past 2 years. And I think it just started off as a thing that you're supposed to have a social presence on the web if you have a hospital. And I flailed about. I didn't really do much with it until, of course, Cuterus happened. Then like my whole life became the internet.
Okay.
But very, very honestly, medical content creation came from a space of there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation. I mean, disinformation is intentional misinformation, particularly about sexual and reproductive health. Now, how I always sort of phrase it is that the Area 51 has so many rumors about it because we don't talk about it, right? It's most likely a junkyard.
Yeah.
It's not even that
Yeah. Yeah.
exciting, possibly. The same way periods and sex are just like so hot that because we don't talk about it, it's become this whole
It's become awful.
thing.
Sorry, I couldn't
And
help
it's really
myself.
just very
I'm
chill
so
stuff.
sorry. I could not help myself. But yes, no, go on. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. It really
That's going to
has.
be a
It really
hashtag.
has. Like,
You'll
oh,
be
I'm in
credited, don't
period. I'm
worry.
like, what? I like, how old are you again? Anyway, please continue.
Yeah, so that's basically it. I just wanted to sort of step away from the the awfulness of it and just be like, this is really normal stuff, right? We all are here because of sex, unless you're an
Yeah.
IVF baby, that's a different thing. But you're also still here
Yeah.
partly
Yeah.
from sex.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So now, of course, on your social media, you don't actually give out diagnoses, obviously. But what are some of the most common questions that you've received about sexual health? And I'm guessing that perhaps people preface it with saying this is probably the weirdest question you've ever received. But what are these weird questions which are actually quite normal that you've gotten?
The world is very masturbation centric, it turns out. I had no idea so many people were so obsessed with how masturbation is ruining their health until I came across some very brilliant YouTubers and sort of podcasters and Instagram content creators who have been spreading a lot of misinformation about masturbation
What?
and calling it really unhealthy. So I would, yeah, yeah. Apparently, masturbation makes you blind. Apparently, you lose muscle. Let me just preface this with the fact that all of this is nonsense and masturbation is perfectly healthy and there's nothing wrong with it. But there are a lot of people. I feel like that addendum is very important.
This thing, you know, it's so funny. I can't
But
wait
there's
for you to answer
so
my
many
next question,
people.
but please continue with this first because this is really so people think that you can go blind from masturbating. Is this coming from guys, from girls, from both?
I'm going to throw in an interesting history trivia
Mm-hmm.
here. Kellogg's cornflakes, they were invented to be anti-masturbatory because Dr. Kellogg was obsessed with being celibate and not masturbating. So he thought that fiery foods or like very flavorful, spicy foods, they will sort of stoke your sexual appetite and will make you want to have sex or masturbate, and masturbation is devilish. So he created a bland food, which is what we have every morning now to fire us up for the rest of the day.
Man, I don't even like. I'm just thinking, okay, how do I feel after eating some really spicy chicken curry? And how do I feel after eating a bowl of cornflakes? I don't think either one of them is really instigating of any kind of a sexual mood. No, no, I'm really not.
Sexy,
Like, it's just like, I'm
sexy
just picturing this. Like, oh my
cornflakes.
God, these cornflakes are so sexy. Anyway, right, okay, but still, having said that, tell me more. Like, what are the some of the, not that we're trying to make a joke about sexual health because God knows it's really really important and not spoken enough about. But tell me more because I'm really curious to know. There must be some other really hilarious things that you get to hear.
Honestly, the rest of it makes me sad because we have been driven to
Mm-hmm.
assume such unrealistic body standards by popular portrayals of media of bodies. For example, a lot of people are very upset that they have dark inner thighs, which is a perfectly normal thing. A lot of people are upset by the color of their penis or the color of their vulva because it's darker than the rest of their body. And, you know, in pornography, you tend to see very sort of manicured pubes and very almost CGI level aesthetically tweaked genitals. So there's a lot of body image issues that stem from here. Lots of people asking for home remedies on how they can fix their dark thighs or dark vulvas or dark penises. Going on further from there, there's a lot of size issues. So a lot of people who have penises feel very inadequate about the size of their penis, about the shape of their penis, about the bent of their penis, and it goes similarly with breasts. They're not perky enough, they're too big, they're too small. How do I make them not sag? I think, you know, you would imagine people would have more um, technical questions about an area
Yeah.
like sexual health, like STIs and all of those things. But we are stuck at such a fundamental level with our body image issues thanks to all of these nonsensical portrayals in popular culture that
That's really sad, actually,
it's
when you put it that
disheartening.
way. And these people, so these examples that you're giving me, they've reached out to you on social media and they've asked for advice and help and suggestions. Um,
Sometimes with pictures.
oh man, wow, wow! I do not want to be you. But like, wow. You know, on the subject of masturbation, I do want to sort of ask you, what's your take on sex toys? Because again, there's a huge stigma on it. And I do lately see a couple of these sex toy adverts pop up on my feed. But I just want to know what's your take on it. Because there's a huge stigma. Are you getting questions about that too? Where is all this going?
Lots of curiosity around the use of sex toys. Like, so I often talk about vibrators
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, right? And I recently got married, and there were so many questions about, "Ab to aapka husband hai. You're married now. Why do you still need toys?" And I'm like, okay, sure. I may have an amusement park, but I'll still go to the water park when I can. So,
And amusement parks have multiple
sort
rides.
of, indeed. So,
Yeah, yeah. One of my most favorite
um,
innuendo jokes is you have to be yay high to get on this ride. But anyway, before we go off on a complete tangent, and I bet all the boys listening are just really tickled pink right now.
oh
But
Lord,
yeah,
wow.
no. We were talking about sex toys, and you said you were talking about the stigma, and you said that people sort of ask you, okay, you have a husband now, why do you need that stuff? But what is your take on it? Do you think that it's contributory generally to somebody's sexual health and general health, overall well-being, anything?
So there's something very important that we tend to forget because again, unrealistic portrayals in common media is that most people with vulvas, most women, do not orgasm from
Mm-hmm.
penetration alone. They need stimulation of the clitoris
Mm-hmm.
separately. Up to like stats say like 75 to 95% people say that they need clitoral
Mm-hmm.
stimulation. And what's the best way to get clitoral stimulation? Get a vibrator, get toys. So they're definitely sort of upping your sexual game. They help you understand yourself better, they help you pleasure yourself better. And they're a wonderful addition, but I don't think they're
Mm.
mandatory. You can still have wonderful sex
Mm.
without toys. We do have some sort of legal issues in India with the sale of toys. Like, if they're labeled obscene, then
Mm.
there's a problem. But who decides what's obscene? So, lots of curiosity in people. Where do you find them? How do you choose the right
Mm-hmm.
toy for you? What kind of toys are there? Can men use toys? There's like a whole gamut of questions that people have. But I think it's like, you're adding dessert to your
Mm-hmm.
feast. It just
Mm-hmm.
adds more. It's not taking away from anything. And I think it's quite wonderful to
Yeah,
most
yeah.
people.
I think it also is I mean, especially if you're sort of using a sex toy and it's for your own private time, it sort of is a wonderful way of being comfortable with yourself and just enjoying that space with yourself as well. Um, I kind of also want to, on the
Truly.
subject of what's going on and sort of the rules and regulations, etc. So, if there was a nationwide mandate for the introduction of sex education in schools and workplaces, if and only if, what are the top few things that you think would be essential to be included?
Understanding our bodies. Like, we call our parts the wrong names. So many people will say, I have to shave my
No,
vagina. You can't shave your
ow,
vagina. Your vagina is the thing on the inside.
Jesus! I just got uncomfortable in my seat. Oh God, girl! No, you can't shave your vagina. That's just.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not for shaving anyway, but yeah,
So, I mean, yeah, if you
yeah,
want to shave, sure, shave, but you can't shave your vagina. That's
yeah,
not physically possible. And, we mislabel everything. You can't go to the doctor and be like, I have a pain in my
yeah,
elbow when your nose hurts
yeah.
if you're mislabeling it. So, introduction to basic bodies. What are bodies? What are the different parts we have? And going on from there, understanding very normal things about our bodies, like periods. I don't know why we don't talk about periods. Like
Yeah,
half of humanity has them, and it's just like,
yeah.
oh, it's very awful.
Yeah, I had a grown ass man
So,
who I was not somebody who I was in a relationship with, but grown ass man, and I was staying at his apartment outside India for a couple of days, literally, and something happened, and he literally said, "You're on your period, ew." I was just like, I just I was like, okay,
Excuse me.
this is where I leave. Like, I'm just gonna go. I don't think I want to be friends with
Yeah.
you anymore. And he couldn't get it. He couldn't get it. He's like, yeah, but it's icky, right? I'm like, are you listening to? And here's what the sad part is, though. The sad part is that this grown ass man could not understand because he had grown up being told or being made to believe that it was something that was icky. So for him, when he said icky, he
Oh,
expected me to go, yeah, man, this is so icky. You know what I mean? Like he thought I would just agree with him because that's how he
yeah.
was brought up. And that's how the girls around him were brought up as well. They were like, yeah, yuck. I'm on,
Yep.
yeah, God, whatever, period, ew. Um, so no, there isn't enough conversation about it. In fact, I know one of the most endearingly sweet yet embarrassing things was going period pad shopping with dad. Like if we had to
Oh,
go,
sweet.
like, I mean, not that we went specifically to get that, but so for example, like sometimes I would go grocery shopping with my father, right? And
Yeah.
I would always have to like, I'd be like squirming and trying to figure out, okay, how do I tell him that I need to go to the pad section to. And when I
Yeah.
think about it now, I'm like, why did it have to be like that? Like, he's my father. Like, it's the most natural thing for him to know. And of course, my dad it was not something that he instilled in me. It was not something that my mom instilled in me. I learned this in school. I learned this from how other girls were talking about being on their period or,
Social
it's
shame.
just, yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Even this thing about like, it doesn't happen anymore, I'm happy to say. But I remember when I first moved to Bombay, going to a store and condoms and periods pads, they would wrap it like they were wrapping a bomb. I'm not even kidding. Like they were just like paper, newspaper, and black. Suddenly, a black wrapping bag would come
Black
suddenly
polythene.
from nowhere. Okay, they would either not have bags or they would be transparent bags, but suddenly a black polythene bag would present itself. And I'll be like, yeah, this is amazing. But anyway, yes, so those are the few things that so talking about your body, period education, anything else?
Just generally understanding consent.
Right.
I think consent is such an important topic that gets missed, and it's so I mean, it's fortunate that we're talking about it now, but it's so unfortunate we're talking about it
Yeah.
now. Like it's taken us this long to get to such a fundamental
Yeah. Yeah.
question. Do you say
Yeah.
yes or no? And I think sort of baby steps is the way to go, especially with something quote unquote as controversial as
Mm-hmm.
sex ed. Um, that if we start here, I think we there's a lot to
Mm-hmm.
build up on. But these are three fundamental things that people should know about: consent, periods, and
Mm-hmm.
your bodies. Because we all have
Mm-hmm.
bodies. We all, not all, but most of us
Mm-hmm.
have periods. And consent is something we all deal with. You won't want anything done without your consent. So how can you have any sort of bodily violation
Yeah.
without it?
Yeah.
And there's something very wonderful I read recently that said there's no such thing as sex without consent. It's rape because it's the same thing as going and taking money out of the bank without their consent. It's
Mm-hmm.
loot. It's the exact
Mm-hmm.
same
Mm-hmm.
equivalence.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. That's something that really needs to be explained. Um, and again, it needs to be explained both to young women and men. But I think particularly women because of the power play that comes into context when it comes to sort of sex and you feeling like you owe it to the guy to say yes if he's been a certain way with you or you know where I'm going with this. Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, before we end this very sexual conversation, I wanted to ask you if there was anyone who was trying to speak to their family openly about sexual health. Can you give us sort of like a way in which they should sort of have this conversation and why they should be open to having these conversations? Because it's something that I think it's difficult to have this conversation, right? With an auntie uncle type situation. You're just like, you don't know how to broach it. But you seem to be very comfortable with talking about it. So if there was some sort of advice that you could give to anybody out there who's sort of hesitant to talk about their sexual health with anybody or just anything sexually driven, what would you say?
So there's a little incident that happened with me, like you mentioned, going shopping with your
Mm-hmm.
father. The first time I went to see my
Mm-hmm.
brother, so he was living in the UK at that time, and I had just landed and I'd gotten my period. So I didn't know how to tell him, and I'm quite close to my brother. So I just kept saying, Bhaiya, can we go to
Oh.
the pharmacy? Can we go to the pharmacy?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, why do you need to go to the pharmacy so bad? We're having a nice afternoon. And I'm like, because I'm on my period. Like very shyly, I tell him, I'm like a grand old 22 years old. I'm not a baby. And he's like, yeah, I knew you were coming and I thought you might have your period at
Oh.
some point. So I've stocked some tampons at home, see if they work for you.
Oh.
Otherwise, we'll go pick up more. And he said it as the
Mm-hmm.
most natural thing in the world. And it's still such a frame shift in my head that, you know, this happened. And it's such an impactful thing because what
Mm-hmm.
really made it comfortable for me with was the nonchalance with which he said it, right? It's just sex, it's
Mm-hmm.
just periods. Literally, all of us are here from sex and periods. So I'm obviously not suggesting that we go sit at the dinner table and say sex, 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 sex. That's not going to fly.
I mean, whatever
But
floats your boat, right? But yeah, it's kind of fun to do that. But
I
anyway,
think
yeah.
it might be a fun social experiment.
Yeah, it would be fun to just sit at a table and go, penis, sex. Just randomly. It'd be so much fun just to see people's reaction. Yeah,
Vagina.
exactly. Exactly. Sex toy. Sorry, we should stop now. But but yeah, you were saying so it changed it's the most natural thing and it changed your perception.
So, sort of easing into the conversation with just talking about your own body, not in a sexualized context, because every time we talk about our body, there is that undercurrent of it's sexualized already.
Yeah.
You can talk about your body in normal terms without sexualizing it. In the same way, you can talk about I've had a difficult day. I'm in pain because I'm on my period. Simple.
Yeah.
And I mean, not everybody has a uterus, so not everybody can say this. But you can initiate conversation around why education about our bodies is important. Because the
Yeah.
minute you take out the dreaded S word out of the conversation, I mean, when we talk about sex, we're talking about bodies at the end of the day anyway,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the S word, the trigger word, that should be taken away. And you can just say we need education about our bodies in schools and initiate conversation around that, just sort of not going haw about it
Mm-hmm.
is the only solution.
Mm-hmm. Not
And it's so easy to do.
yeah.
We all talk about it with our friends, but when we talk about it with our friends, it will be after 5 years and it will be, तेरे को पता है उसने इसके साथ sex किया. That's it. Conversation over.
Yeah.
That's how it starts when we like in college.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I, I thought that was going to be what I wanted to ask you last, but I also really want to quickly touch upon this. So, to all the guys, girls, and non-binaries, our non-binary pals who are listening, I want you to tell us 3 to 5 things you'd want them to proactively do right now that'll help with their sexual health going forward. So basically, to everybody listening, 3 to 5 things that you can do to help with your sexual health.
Please use condoms when you're having any kind of sex. Flavored condoms don't exist because the penis and the vagina have taste buds in them. Flavored condoms exist for oral sex. And you can very much get STIs from oral sex. It's not to add ambience to the room. It's not to add, um, I don't know, just glow in the dark condoms. By the way, did you know that? I'm sorry, tangent.
Yes,
But
I'm aware. I'm aware. I'm surprisingly well versed with everything sex related, but I'm not surprisingly. I'm
as
quite
one
proud of
should be.
myself. But yes, as one should be. There are glow in the dark condoms. God alone knows why, and I've never tried one, but I can't imagine it being very fun. I'd be a little freaked out, honestly speaking.
Yeah, imagine like a wandering glow in the dark penis in the room, like
So
disembodied.
it's kind of creepy, man. It's kind of it's like it takes a whole new turn on lightsaber. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just like what? Anyway,
Anyway, yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. but but yes. So use a condom
Use a
even for
condom
oral
even in
sex.
anal sex, even for oral sex, for penis and
Yeah,
vagina sex. And if
yeah,
you are having oral sex with a vulva, that doesn't mean you're free from the responsibility of condoms. You can use dental dams. If you don't know how to use make a dental, if you can't procure a dental dam, you can make one. Look it up on YouTube, look it up on my profile. It's very easy to make, just cut a condom and you can make one. So condom, which makes us move on to the other important thing, which is lubricants. So many people experience painful sex and infections after sex and just like inflammation after sex because there's this common assumption that for the first time is supposed to be painful, and then they kind of stick with that. It's not meant to be painful. Sex is fun and slippery. There's like this common sort of t-shirt slogan that says the wetter the better because lubricants help. It makes sex more comfortable, it makes it more slippery, it makes it more easy. So condoms, lubricants, consent is really, really, really important, and there are a lot more articulate people that talk about it better than I ever can. So please learn a little bit more about why consent is so important and how you can make sure all of your interactions in any kind of sexual space are consensual, because sexual health is related to your mental health and it can really impact your brain if you have non-consensual experiences. So yeah, consent is not just key, but consent is essential. Consent is mandatory. Nothing happens without consent.
Wonderful. Thank you for that.
And the last, actually no, this is not the last, this is the fourth thing, which is really important, is that there is only one vaccine available in the world that protects you from cancer. And that is cancer of the cervix. Now, this is caused by a virus called HPV, so it also causes cancers of the throat, of the mouth, of the anus, of the penis, of the vagina, of the cervix, but mainly it causes cervical cancer. And cervical cancer is the second most common cause of cancer in Indian women. It's so common, but we don't talk about it. And there's a vaccine that protects you against it. You're ideally supposed to get it before you have your sexual exposure for the first time. But even if you've had any sexual interaction, still get it. It costs a grand sum of 2,000 rupees for a dose. There's 3 doses, so you spend 6,000 bucks. A lot of us have spent out more on night outs. So just save 6,000 rupees, get yourself vaccinated. In the UK, they also do it for young boys. But at the moment, it's not approved for boys in India. But if you have a vagina, please get vaccinated against cervical cancer. It's seriously simple. And number 5, sex is chill. Let's not complicate it. Let's not make it awful.
Yes, please. It's not meant to be awful. It's meant to be awful. Get it?
I cannot believe I find this funny.
Oh, I'm jet lagged. I don't know what your excuse is, but yes, I'm just glad you're finding.
I live in Allahabad.
I'm glad that you're finding this entertaining, right? So sex is not awful. It's let's make it awful. Get it?
Dashful.
Yes. Never mind. Anyway, for those of you who didn't get it, write to us. Right. I'm literally going to end this conversation. I promise this is the last thing. Okay. So complete this sentence. Hello, auntie, uncle. This is Dr. Cuterus, and I've been asked to tell you ...
And I've been asked to tell you that there's an underground sexual revolution happening. And as much as you want to pretend that nobody is having sex, there's a lot of people outside that are having sex. So you better talk to your children about it, because they're going to have it anyway. And pretending it doesn't happen is not going to help anyone. Namaskar.
Amen. Mic drop.
I will not pretend that I haven't practiced that 15 times in my mirror every day.
That's fine. It works like a charm. Mirror affirmations are the best. Right. So that's going to be the lead quote in our promo when we do release the podcast, by the way. That's going to be plastered everywhere.
Ooh,
yes,
wonderful.
Excellent. Anyway.
Ooh, wonderful. I love that.
Yeah. Anyway, listen, thank you so much. This has been a long overdue conversation, but was totally worth the wait. So thank you. Who knew how much I needed to yell the word sex at the top of my lungs? came as a surprise. Well, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Dr. Cuterus, and I also hope we answered some of your questions about your body, your period, masturbation, protection, sex toys, consent, and everything else in between. And to get a lot more info about sexual health, do check out the show notes to see where you can follow Dr. Cuterus and her work. And of course, for more feel-good vibes, head to Figoco, that's Fegoco, on Instagram.